We begin today's wrestling news and rumors video with some news regarding Matt Hardy, and more so Matt Hardy's flattering opinion of fellow AEW star CM Punk. Now it goes without saying that the majority of wrestling fans were extremely excited to see CM Punk finally return to wrestling last year and join the WWE's competition AEW. And clearly fans aren't the only ones who were happy to see CM Punk back in the ring. Here's what Matt Hardy had to say regarding CM Punk's wrestling return, and by all means, Matt Hardy is definitely a big fan of CM Punk. Quote, "For me personally, I'm happy to see CM Punk back in wrestling. I think CM Punk is just a fantastic pro wrestler. I feel like he belongs in pro wrestling. I give him all the credit in the world for venturing out into the UFC. That was amazing. I wouldn't have done it even if I felt like I could have. I wouldn't have been that brave or courageous. It took a lot of courage for him to do that, but I'm happy he's back in pro wrestling, because I feel like when it comes to pro wrestling, that is just what he's built for. This is what he's made for. He's one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time. For him to come back to AEW and be happy, and once again be fueled by such great passion, and have this great program with MJF, and also write these love letters to the legends who kind of paved the way for him and all of us, I think it's been great. Punk just seems like he's very happy to be back, which is nice. I know towards the end of his WWE run, he was just burned out and miserable. It is easy for that to happen to you in this industry, especially if you end up in a very weird space. So it's great to see him back, relaxed and passionate and really in love with pro wrestling again. Now it seems as though Matt Hardy feels like CM Punk is one of the all-time greats in wrestling. And in your honest opinion, do you agree with Matt Hardy that CM Punk is one of the best ever? Or do you agree with those who feel like CM Punk was always overrated? As well, give us your thoughts on CM Punk's run in All Elite Wrestling so far. Do you believe that CM Punk has been a huge success in AEW since his debut last August? Or do you feel like CM Punk has not really lived up to the hype or excitement that initially surrounded his debut in the company? Now, there's some pretty big news going around right now regarding former WWE superstars Akam and Rezar, the authors of Pain. After taking quite a lengthy hiatus from wrestling, according to new backstage reports, AOP are planning on returning to the ring in the near future. Apparently, for the time being, the authors of Pain are planning on running some kind of a wrestling event in Dubai, where they will reportedly wrestle on this card. But not surprisingly, a lot of fans have begun speculating that this may lead to Akam and Rezar returning to WWE sometime in the future, and possibly even to be involved in some capacity with Roman Reigns and his Bloodline faction, although that is just speculation right now. Not long ago, there were rumors that the authors of Pain were done with wrestling following the releases from WWE back in 2020. But it seems like AOP are planning on making a comeback, and given the state of WWE's tag team division, it is quite possible that Vince McMahon could be willing to give them a second chance. And like some fans feel, AOP could have been a helpful addition to Roman Reigns' heel faction. Although it is likely that WWE would utilize the authors of Pain in a completely different storyline if they were to be brought back in the future. However, all this is just speculation at this point, and AOP may not have any plans of returning to WWE, and instead want to wrestle outside of the company. But considering AOP have not apparently been open to working with other companies following their WWE releases, with it being stated that wrestling promoters reached out to AOP but never heard back. So perhaps Akam and Rezar would like to return to WWE if they plan on wrestling full-time again. While some fans mention the whole Roman Reigns faction as one possible way to utilize the authors of Pain if they were to return to WWE, another idea that some fans talked about is AOP possibly going back to being the henchman for Seth Rollins again. And by all means, that could be a great way to utilize Akam and Rezar if they do come back to WWE. However, AEW All Elite Wrestling is also a possible option for AOP if they are committed to this return to wrestling. And considering the run in WWE did not end in the greatest way, maybe All Elite Wrestling will be a company that AOP consider to work with, especially if they're offered a similar amount of money compared to WWE. Now, some fans felt like the Authors of Pain should have been much bigger stars in WWE than they ever were, as they had the size and ferocity to be a dominant tag team. But like some of you are probably aware, untimely injuries were a major reason why WWE ended up pulling the plug on the Authors of Pain's pushes on multiple occasions, and perhaps WWE would be a bit skeptical about bringing them back because of them being pretty injury prone. Time will only tell, but it is nice to hear that the Authors of Pain haven't completely given up their wrestling careers just yet, and plan on returning to the ring soon. Although when it comes to which major company they would want to work with, if at all, between companies like AEW, WWE, and Impact Wrestling, that does remain to be seen. We now have some breaking news regarding NXT superstar Candice LeRae. As some of you may be aware, rumors had went around that Candice's WWE contract was set to expire sometime this spring, but there were also rumors that the WWE may have essentially planned to extend Candice LeRae's contract to 2023 because of injuries and time away from the ring. However, Candice LeRae has now officially been moved over to the alumni section on WWE.com. And one of our sources has revealed that Candice's contract with WWE has now expired, with WWE not extending it apparently. What this means is that Candice LeRae is now a free agent, much like her husband Johnny Gargano, and in all honesty it is likely that Candice LeRae will join the wrestling company that Johnny Gargano ultimately decides to work with in the near future, which could very well be AEW. What's even more noteworthy is that WWE apparently wanted to keep Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano in WWE, but clearly something fell apart in the contract talks and negotiations, hence why they're now both officially free agents. Let us know your thoughts on Candice LeRae's quiet exit from WWE today, and are you sad to see her leave the company, or are you excited for what lies ahead in another company like AEW? We unfortunately have some pretty heartbreaking news to share with you guys regarding Big E's status following his neck injury that Big E sustained on Friday Night SmackDown a couple of months ago. Now with this kind of an injury, there's always a chance that the wrestler won't be able to return to the ring for obvious reasons, and while most fans were hopeful that Big E would eventually recover from this neck injury well enough to return to the ring and possibly chase a second WWE Championship, Big E has certainly put a lot of doubt on this ever happening. For those of you unaware, Big E had taken to social media to sadly reveal that his neck is not healing in an optimal way, and that essentially whatever happens will happen. At the very least, if Big E's serious neck injury does not heal in the right way, he would definitely require a spinal fusion and a serious surgery, and this would mean that Big E would be out of action for a very long time, likely well over a year, and the heartbreaking reality is that Big E may not ever be cleared to wrestle again in WWE, although we will remain positive and hope that Big E can make a full recovery and continue on his career.